Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, West Coast Weather Watch, January 26th edition. Taking a look at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see BC, Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada here. Taking a look at that ridge starting to retrograde here out across the Pacific Ocean. Going to allow for a bit of a northwesterly and a northeasterly flow here coming across the Pacific Northwest. Some Arctic air trying to make it into the region here. Eventually going to develop a storm that's going to move down across the West Coast in through California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and Colorado on in through early next week. And we'll take a look also at the snow potential for western Washington, western Oregon here, as well as the rest of the Pacific Northwest. Nice snow maker here for much of the west portion of the USA here coming up. Taking a look here, current hazards, you got some wind advisories and high wind warnings for Southern California. The Santa Ana winds are blowing this morning, should continue on during the day today. A lot of winter storm watches up here for Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, getting ready for this Arctic air to move down across the region. Some high wind warnings in effect as well across the area. Now, taking a look here, this is the European hot off the presses here. We're looking at 6-hour precipitation type and the surface pressure map. Here goes the storm tonight on in through Friday morning. You can see a pretty good shot of snow for BC, Washington Cascades on in through the Rocky Mountains of Idaho, Montana here. And then you can see the Arctic air start to sag south across some of the Pacific Northwest, BC, Alberta here. Tries to bring some lower snow levels to western Washington, Oregon. Doesn't really get down towards the surface too much, but you can see some flakes flying, especially if you have any elevation on the higher hills out here. And you'll see this storm pivot southward, bring some snow to the Sierra Nevada, Nevada itself, Utah, Colorado, all the way down through northern Arizona here, some of the higher terrain as well. As we go on in through Monday, this would be Monday afternoon shown here. And we're going to clear out a bit across the Pacific Northwest here and get rid of some of those dreary skies. Been kind of foggy and dreary, not seeing much of the sun here over the last several days. So it'll be a welcome change here as we go on in through early next week. Now this is looking at 925 millibar height winds. So you can see Washington, Oregon, California here. Some offshore winds going on across California this morning. You can see they're peaking here just kind of late morning, early afternoon across Southern California. Then they should start to relax by the time you get into tonight. But you can see even by this afternoon, they're still going fairly strong across some of the Southern California there. Then you can see the Arctic air start to move out across Alberta and British Columbia here. You can see the northerly flow here. It starts to get pretty gusty here across eastern Washington down towards eastern Oregon here. The offshore winds coming here. Some winds going through the Fraser River Gap out over the ocean here. Then the development of that storm will move down the California coastline here towards Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and Colorado here on in through Monday shown. Santa Ana winds strong, expected through tonight. Probably you're going to start waning by this evening for the Santa Ana winds. Some pretty good gusts out there, though. You can see some of these gusts up towards 70 miles per hour for many regions here, 55 for some of the valleys there too. So watch out for those impacts out there when those winds are blowing. You know your usual locations there, the gaps in the higher terrain especially. This is for San Diego National Weather Service, also highlighting that threat as well. You can see some of the gusts up to 45 in the advisory areas and up to 75 for the high wind warning areas, especially the mountains and the gap areas, as you can see here. A nice graphic here from the National Weather Service, San Diego. Now, this is looking at the upper level temperatures here, 850 millibars, 5,000 feet. I'm going to put this into motion here. You can see the flow change to kind of northerly across Pacific Northwest, and there comes that Arctic air mass marching down. Mainly stays east of the Rockies, as you can see. A little bit spills out into BC there, and it tries to get into western Washington, Oregon. It does a better job for eastern Washington and Oregon here, but you can see this, the huge cold air mass mainly going to stay off to the east, but it does clip the region here across the west coast. And you can see the storm system here as we go on in through Monday, pivoting across California, making its way towards Arizona and Utah shown here. So some pretty chilly temperatures coming here, but not a true Arctic blast here for the Pacific Northwest. Now taking a look at 2-meter temperature anomaly here. Again, this is the European 12Z. This is hot off the presses, 4 a.m. You can clearly see the colder temperatures are going to be coming here. It's just not a great trajectory for snowfall across some of Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, BC coming up here. And you can really see these anomalously cold temperatures across a lot of the plains out there, all the way down into the Texas Panhandle as we go on down through Monday, as much of the west is going to be well below average as we go. Now, taking a look here, this is National Weather Service Spokane, Washington here, but it's going to be similar for a lot of the areas across from the Intermountain West here as this Arctic air mass tries to make its way down into the area. Rapid drop of temperatures as possible, slick road conditions, etc. So just have a heads up there as this starts to move into eastern Washington by Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, and evening. And then a little bit later, the further you go south across the Intermountain West. This is the European here. Again, this morning's run, total snowfall ratio, Kuchera ratio shown here. You can see the snowfall really building up here across the Idaho Panhandle, the Rocky Mountains of Montana, on in through BC, Alberta, and you can see Wyoming getting hit especially hard as well. Utah, Colorado, some nice snowfalls for the northern mountains there in Arizona. Even some in Nevada getting in on the action pretty well there too. An additional snowfall for the Sierra Nevada here. Also, this would be very early Tuesday morning shown here. So nice storm for the Intermountain West and much of the West Coast here coming up. Now, taking a look here, this is snow depth in inches here. This is current. We put this into motion. You can see the nice snowpack across British Columbia, Cascades of Washington, Oregon, Sierra Nevada here. Some areas across Idaho, Montana, Yellowstone there. But we're going to add to that as we go. You'll see some of that pile up there across some of these areas here and bring some additional snowfall all the way down through Arizona here. So, again, like I said, like I've said before anyway, it's really hard to have too much snowpack here. It's a very beneficial thing as you go on in towards the spring months for the stream and river runoff. Now taking a look here, this is the European high resolution. I want to show this for people up here in Seattle and Portland, Vancouver, BC here. It's been kind of socked in recently, but look as we go on in through. This is Friday afternoon. And you'll see the system kind of pivot across us on the day Saturday, but look at the clearing behind that. It's going to be kind of nice. Look at that. We might get a few days with some sunshine and some offshore winds, although it will be quite chilly, but it's going to be a nice change from what we've been getting here across Pacific Northwest. Just wanted to point out this pattern change coming up here likely on in through later this week and into Monday. Now taking a look here, we're looking a little bit closer here at the snow potential here for western Washington, Oregon. And you can see as we go through Friday, not much of an impact there. But as we look at this European run, you can see a little bit of snowfall trying to make its way still into the Seattle metro here. And you can see it maybe trying to go down to the I-5 corridor a bit here, but not a dynamic snowstorm. Temperatures are going to be marginal. There's probably not going to be anything sticking across the Seattle metro or the Willamette Valley up through southwest BC here. The temperatures are just too marginal. We just don't have the correct setup here to get this snow level down to the surface here. The cold air mainly staying off east of the terrain, which is a nice protector here for the Pacific Northwest, especially if you don't like snow. But you can see the good amounts coming across the Cascades and portions of eastern Oregon and Washington as this Arctic front sags south across the area. This would be shown by Sunday morning. So it's just clearing out pretty quick here as this air mass moves south fairly quickly. This is for Portland. You can see the downgrade that happened from yesterday's runs to today. Maybe some flakes flying, especially on the higher hills, but not much expected in the metro area. Same thing for Seattle, Tacoma. Possible to see a few flakes, especially on the higher hills, but not a big snowstorm coming up here, folks. Now, looking at Cascade Locks, you get a little bit further east, and you can see more significant snowfall potential there. This is Yakima, maybe an inch or two out there. Spokane International, probably 1 to 3 inches across the region there. It's going to be pretty cold, though. It should mostly stick and could be blowing around a bit, too. So heads up for that reduced visibility possible with that. This is Great Falls, Montana. Nice snow signal here. Nice, dry, fluffy snow. 4 inches showing up there about for the ensemble mean and the control run there. Now taking a look here for Reno, nice snowfall potentially incoming here too, 2 to 4 inches possible, not out of the question there. Ensembles have pretty good agreement here for that snow occurring as you go on in through the day, Sunday on into Monday morning. This is Salt Lake City, a couple rounds of snow potentially coming out there. Of course, the snow is much drier here than it is here in the Pacific Northwest out there. So you can see that bump there as we go on in through the morning and daytime Saturday, and then maybe again here as you go through Sunday night into Monday. This is Flagstaff all the way down to Arizona there. A nice snow signal here for the ensemble mean is just over 4 inches. The control up towards 6 inches there. Some of these members have even higher totals there depending on the track of that storm as it moves across the southwest portion of the USA. This is St. George, Utah here. Check it out. The ensemble mean is actually getting up towards 4 inches there as well. And again, a lot is going to depend on the strength of that low and the track of the low as it moves across the region there. Now, this is looking at yesterday's European run. I wanted to take a look at the extended forecast. There goes Friday's system here. There goes the next one. And again, we've talked about this a lot, but we need a better trajectory to get snowfall down to the lowlands, Pacific Northwest here. That's just not going to cut it. And it's looked like that really from the start of the when the models first picked this up, you can kind of see the trajectory was funky. It was not very favorable for that. But you can see the storm move down across the southwest. Pretty interesting system here. It's going to bring some much needed snowfall across some of the higher terrain here across the southwest as this finally pivots across. And you'll notice this Arctic air mainly stays east. Then we start to get the Gulf of Alaska troughing going again with some potential warmer and wetter systems moving through the Pacific Northwest shown there in between ridges. So the GFS is a little bit more aggressive with some of these systems as well. So we'll start watching these. We got some wind potential and some rain. You could even start getting some atmospheric river talk going with some of the setups that potentially are coming on in through early February. We'll just continue to watch that for now. Just strictly fantasy still at this point. Now, taking a look here, you got the European versus itself 2-meter temperature anomaly, and you've got the sea level pressure here on the right. So if I put this into motion, you're going to see a clear pattern emerge here of what's going on. You see that Arctic high sagging south across BC and Alberta here, and notice the cold temperatures associated with that Arctic high. And you can kind of see the terrain feature of the Rocky Mountains here as this Arctic high sags south down across Wyoming, Colorado, down across the Texas Panhandle here, and you can see these very cold temperatures moving down with that Arctic high as it stays clearly east of the Rockies shown here. This would be Monday, 10 a.m. of next week shown there. So you can kind of see, I'll back it up a little bit one more time here, Arctic high bringing that very cold weather down across mainly east of the Rockies, but some of it does leak out across the Pacific Northwest, and you can kind of see it here. Now taking a look, 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. Much of the west is below average here all the way through early February. That kind of wanes a little bit here for some of the west coast here as we go a little bit later on into February towards February 8th shown here. Now this is risk of heavy snowfall on in through early February here. You can see the Cascades, Sierra Nevada, Siskiyou's there, some of the Intermountain West as well, all the way on in through February 6th shown here. And this is looking at a little bit more some risk of high winds. I don't know if this is trying to pick up on some of the storm systems returning out of the Gulf of Alaska at this point. It could be, but they have it up there nonetheless. This is 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook. A lot of the Pacific Northwest above here as you go on in through early February, and a similar signal there on in through February 8th with a below average signal coming up here for some of the southwest portion of the USA as well. So anyway, if you guys get a chance also, this has been 323 years ago to the day of the Orphan tsunami that impacted Japan here. Huge earthquake on the Washington coast there on January 26, 1700. Ripped across the Pacific Ocean here. And of course, they didn't feel any shaking there in Japan. And all of a sudden, this massive tsunami was on their shoreline, caused all kinds of crazy damage there. And go ahead and check out how they know the exact date of this as well. There was records from Japan and some of the Native American folklore out there as well, as far as, doing some dating here, as far as looking at the shoreline of the Washington coast, and you can actually see when these earthquakes occurred, and you can actually see that it was right about 1700. So we know our dating methods are quite accurate here, especially when you line it up with the records that were very accurate there across Japan. So interesting thing, look that up, the Orphan tsunami of 1700. Very interesting read for you there. So anyway, yeah, we're going to turn colder here. Probably not much snowfall west of the Cascades like we talked about here, but Cascades east going to get pretty chilly here and multiple rounds of snow for some of the areas as well. And a nice storm system all the way down across the southwest USA, bringing mountain snows as we go on into early next week here coming up. So anyway, yeah, we'll check this out again tomorrow. We have one more day tomorrow to look at this, see if any last minute changes occur. But right now does not look good at all for snowfall west of the Cascades. Sorry, snow lovers, for this round, but winter isn't done just yet. You know how February's can be here across Pacific Northwest and really across much of the West Coast as well. Winter not over yet. We might flirt with some colder air again as we go. But anyway, yeah, so click like, subscribe if you haven't already, turn your notifications on, and we'll do this again tomorrow, and I'll talk to you guys then.